What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host for this evening. Joining me, as always, is Cameron.
Howdy, y'all.
And we hope you guys had a wonderful 4th of July. So did we. Well, with this fascinating crop of movies that we'll be discussing, we have America, fuck yeah, the motion picture, The Boss Baby, Family Business, and we're doing 2 Ghibli movies on our Ghibli journey. It's a kind of Twitter meme of how it started versus how's it going, with Hayao Miyazaki's Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind and The Wind Rises. So first, let's get the fun one out of the way. Let's talk about America, the motion picture.
Alrighty, Roo. This is the new movie directed by Matt Thompson of Archer fame, written by Dave Callahan, produced by the Lord and Miller duo, along with Adam Reed, Channing Tatum, Will Allegra, Peter Kiernan, Reed Carolyn, Eric Sims, and produced by Floyd County Productions and Free Associations, along with Netflix Animation. So, do you ever want to hear a history report narrated by Jake Peralta from Brooklyn Nine-Nine at his most hammered?
Oh, hell yeah.
This is what it would kind of sound like, because it's about how George Washington, who's voiced by Channing Tatum, is best friends with Abe Lincoln. They just happen to be around in the same time period when the Declaration of Independence is being formed. Don't ask how that all makes sense. It doesn't matter. Benedict Arnold, voiced by Andy Samberg, pulls a Benedict Arnold and kills everyone who forged the Declaration of Independence, and then brutally murders Abe Lincoln at a theatrical performance. Big shock, I know. It is up to George Washington to get revenge for his best friend and forms a team of rowdy rebels to help him on his journey to take down the British. These include Samuel Adams, voiced by Jason Mantzoukas, Thomas Edison, a female Chinese incarnation of the character, voiced by Olivia Munn, Paul Revere, voiced by Bobby Moynihan, Geronimo, voiced by Raul Trujillo, and Blacksmith, voiced by Killer Mike. Let's start with overall thoughts. Mike?
This movie is stupid, but I loved it anyway. It's objectively, it in no way earns the 5 out of 5, because I do think this movie is very rough around the edges. And I'll admit that this could have been my speakers getting fucked up for whatever reason, but some of the sound mixing I thought was kind of off, especially during those big action scenes where you had the heavy metal music blasting, and some of the dialogue either doesn't come in all the way or just sounds like it was recorded in someone's bedroom or bathroom. But I think just conceptually, I'm kind of a big fan of taking the piss out of American history and remixing it to tell whatever story you want. My parents were asking me about this movie, and when I was describing the plot, they were like, "Oh, so it's like Hamilton?" And I said, "Sure, but raunchier and with more science fiction elements."
It's basically a raunchy political comedy mixed with a action pulp story. It's very much a grindhouse kind of thing, where it's just let's just go bonkers with a premise idea like this. And for my overall thoughts, I think it's a bit of a rough mess. I don't think all of it works. But after watching this film 3 or 4 times,
it's just kind of grown on you.
It's grown on me, and I start to notice all the little jokes and dialogue bits here and there. I think it's a lot smarter than people are giving it credit for, but I perfectly understand this not being anyone's cup of tea. This is a movie that you're either going to love or you're just not going to tolerate at all. And some of it is because it's uneven. I mean, I guess let's get the negatives out of the way. For as funny as the film can be, it is also very obnoxious. It's very like in your face. And it doesn't give you time to really breathe, to like really get some of the dialogue jokes and visual gags. And sometimes it just wasn't funny. And of course, due to the whole comedy is subjective thing, you may find some of it funny, some of it can be very clever, some of it can be very dumb, and some of it can be dumb in the wrong way, like in the bad way.
What do you think of Jason Mantzoukas' performance? Because I genuinely believe that he's one of these actors that he's very funny when used in the right way. And we've gotten lucky that like Mantzoukas has popped up in a lot of the shows that we enjoy. But that being said, if used wrong, then he can get very obnoxious.
He is very obnoxious, and there's like a point to that, but I do get that he's a little much at points. He can be too much at times. He's like his character from Invincible. If you just kind of concentrate it into like pure Mantzoukas D-bag energy. And it's interesting because I do think there is a very funny element to his character, just how obnoxious college frat bro he is. And then his character arc throughout the story. But I think a lot of it is also because of how the like Geronimo, Edison, and the blacksmith like bounce off of him. Because there's this funny element to the story once you rewatch it a little more. Like blacksmith, Geronimo, and Edison are constantly giving the white characters like the side eye, like, okay. Like they don't really trust them, even though it's like they're all, they all want to take down the British, but there's like a snide cynicism to it.
That's something I can really appreciate about these characters. And just like the ingenious choice to make Thomas Edison, her introduction is kind of brilliant because, this movie is far enough away from the actual Salem witch trials, but the movie already gives like negative zero fucks about continuity. It's just funny how like her introduction is like, she's like being burned at the stake for being a witch, but it turns out she's a scientist.
Yeah, no, I thought that was pretty clever, and I also like how they're just like, for experimenting, for hypothesizing, concluding that hypothesis, she is sentenced to death. Like, if you listen to the dialogue a little, there are plenty of very good jokes, but they kind of slip through it because film is very bombastic and how just unrelentingly in your face it is. And then it's just like, I don't think some of the jokes or commentary works, or it's very surface level at points. Like, I think some people got really worried when they saw the part in the trailer where the "Don't tread on me, bro" thing comes up. And I think a lot of people should have known that these people weren't going to cater to that group of people.
If I know anything about Lord and Miller's like political stance, they are very much the opposite of right wing. They're about as left as most of Hollywood.
Yeah, so it's definitely like, I don't think it balances everything out, but I do really dig the cynicism of the ending, where it's all very much like the ideal version of what America should be. We all get together, we all stand up against hate and to support science and freedom and such. And then everyone's like, and what about the slaves? What?
and he has no answer.
No answer. And then what about giving the Native Americans their land back or getting the guns back? And then really it devolves into what America actually turned into, which is very sad, but it's a very dark punchline to the overall movie. And then there are just like little things like when King Richard, who's voiced by Simon Pegg, is eating on a big table shaped like the US. All the food is relegated to like different parts of the US of where they originated. Like you see beignets in Louisiana because New Orleans, and then the Great Lakes is just a giant water jug. And
at one point he's eating a double stuffed pizza.
yeah, I love that whole scene is delightfully gross. But and then it's just like I think that I don't know. For my takeaway, it still feels like a movie, even after watching it 4 times, that wants to be this super dumb, campy, pulpy, like America, heck yeah, story, and just to be this fun action romp. Take the Hellboy or the amazing screw-on head route of historical accuracy, which none. It's like someone had to tell them like, oh no, but the internet's going to wonder how all of this works historically and accurately, and then I think it like clashes a little too much at points.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And in my quick thoughts, I kind of hypothesize what the smarter version of this movie would be like. Kind of an adult version of the Lego movie where they have like a framing device of Mantzoukas, Tatum, Sandberg, and like all of the cast just like as themselves, just like hanging out on 4th of July, and then they're just kind of reminiscing about how our nation was founded, and it just kind of turns into this. I thought that might have added like a one extra layer to make this to make it more substantial. But then I was thinking like, no, there's no way to save this movie without like a complete rewrite.
I mean, I hate saying this because I understand Lord and Miller don't want to take up all the responsibility with making movies. Sometimes they just want to help produce the movie, and I think a lot of the best humor in this movie is from the hands of Lord and Miller, because then you got the remaining of what you got is Dave Callahan. Well, he wrote the screenplay on The Expendables. Expendables 2, wrote the story for Godzilla 2014, did productions rewrite for Ant-Man. It was written by like Zombieland Double Tap, and then this year's Mortal Kombat film, not the cool animated one that's coming out. I don't know, maybe he needs someone to write with him, but I'm not sure.
Funny you should say that, because some of his other projects that he's working on, he wrote the screenplay for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, and we were just talking about Lord and Miller earlier. He's co-writing the Into the Spider-Verse sequel with them.
Yeah, so, and then you look at America the Motion Picture, and it's all him. So, and it's also just because I feel like a lot of the characters don't get fleshed out enough. Like, Geronimo and Blacksmith kind of disappear for a lot of the third act until the big fight sequence at the end, even though they have every justifiable reason to not help these stupid white people.
But they do it anyway because Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, and even though I love when they're sitting in a strip club and they're just talking about how dumb they are, and I love the lines like, it's like you win, quote unquote, so hard, like even when you lose you still think you won. And of course that's all connected to the Vietnam gag, and like there's smart humor here. It's very witty and appropriately clashing with the different characters, but then maybe it's just I wasn't looking at the character arcs the right way. Like, I think Sam Adams gets maybe too much of a free pass at the end, where he's just like, hell yeah, man, I'm no longer racist. And I feel like, no, you still are. But I mean, and I think they kind of know that, because then Geronimo's like, sure, okay.
I do think it's kind of cute that every time they say racist, that it somehow turns into referring to Paul Revere, because his thing is all about horses.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what they really wanted to do with Paul Revere as a character. Like, I love the whole ending, like, result of him turning into a centaur RoboCop. But like, Well, I don't know. It's his characteristics that kind of confuse me a little.
Yeah, I
Like, is he supposed to sound like or like come off like, oh, I was raised by horses, so like, what are they implying?
yeah, see, when you can't figure out what they're going for a character, that's when you know that they didn't care about development at all. They pretty much they only cared about the jokes until like the end of the second half when things had to get emotional.
And it's a shame because like when Blacksmith or John Henry comes back into it and Geronimo comes back, they have some of the best lines and sequences within the movie. Like the final kill shot to Benedict Arnold is delivered by Blacksmith John Henry. So like it's uneven. And then with the whole Benedict Arnold turning into a werewolf. Okay. I mean, like I did find that part funny when he's trying to tell Abraham Lincoln like how he's betraying them, and Abe Lincoln's just like misinterpreting what he actually means.
Stop being so accepting for a minute.
And yet, sometimes the humor was a bit much, like the whole like blood still spilling out when Abe was dying. It's like, okay, I get it. And it's a very macho film. I think the only female character that gets like the most development is Edison. I liked Martha Dandridge, who's voiced by Judy Greer, but I don't think she was like the most interesting character. She was just the love interest, and even though it's like that one very like grown worthy line, which I think was meant to be grown worthy, it's just like, you're George Washington, the man who invented peanut butter, the same. And it's like, ah.
Mm.
I don't know. It's like she wasn't the most interesting to me.
I'll give Judy Greer this. At least she gets to play a slightly more interesting character that isn't just like the mom or, well, yeah, she's still the love interest, but she's like she has a little bit more going for her, not too much. I think like the best performance is Andy Samberg's Benedict Arnold, because only once in a while does like Samberg's natural cadence like come out, but like for the most part he's like playing the character.
I think the whole cast is at least having fun with this premise. Like they're all on board. There's no one playing it too seriously. There's like for example, like the whole sequence when King James finally arrives on like in the US and he's talking about the rules. By the way, the rule list is so funny. I love like one of them is no rom-coms and
Yep.
no research and
No diversity.
yeah, no diversity. It's like oof. And then the whole twisted joke of like the whole the tea party incident of realizing that they're making tea. If you dunk an American in it, they turn British. And then the role reversal by the end, where if you give a British person beer, they turn American. But yeah, I like King James being like, does he not know how to? Oh no, does he not know how to read? No, he does, sir. He's read them, but he's not following them. It's like, yeah, I mean, those kind of movies that are like really pulpy and fun, and then there's that one person taking it way too seriously.
Yep.
Who's like not on the same page, or that one person who is like the only one who's like, yeah, I know what kind of movie this is. I'm just doing it because I was paid to.
Luckily, that's not the case with this movie. Everyone like they know the material they're working with is just silly and ridiculous, so they're just kind of having fun with it.
Yeah, and at some points, I wish they went a little further with it. Like, I don't know, they hype up this one sequence of Paul Bunyan fighting the Big Ben clock that turns into a mech. And then Paul Bunyan gets killed very quickly. And then they kind of throw in that joke where they're like, what's a phone or what's a car? It's like, I don't know. I feel like they could have polished out exactly what exists and what doesn't, because then they have like a helicopter and it's like, okay.
I think at the end of the day, like the number one criticism that I have is this movie is unpolished, and that would be okay if, again, like I said, there was maybe that extra layer that kind of justifies the unpolishedness. But as it stands, it's too coarse to love, but it's too fun to hate.
And I also like Mark Mothersbaugh did the music for this, and he's done the music for like the Crudes and New Age and such. It's fine. I don't remember too much from it.
Me neither.
It was just kind of there to get it done. And then, let's talk about the animation. Considering that this is from the same people that make Archer, and it's just a slightly more bigger budgeted Archer episode, I think it looks good for what it is. It's way more expressive. It's got a lot more character movements than what Archer usually has. I hope the animators get unionized there, because again, you gotta respect and give these people their time and proper wages, and not work them to death.
Yeah, I agree with that. Workplace environment aside, the animation for this movie is genuinely great. I love the kind of stylized, kind of steampunk-ish version of America, and I would love if this style was applied to, maybe for Thompson's next movie, something a little bit more serious, something a little less chaotic, because I do really like these character designs. I just think, like we kind of talked about earlier, things move in this movie a little too fast, like too just too unhinged.
And it's a shame, because I really had a lot of fun with this movie, warts and all. It just needed a little more polish, but I do respect the heck out of this film's existence, because films like this make talking about animation a lot more fun when you just get to see something so rough around the edges, but obviously has a lot of creative input put into it. The worst thing that you can be is forgettable.
Mm-hmm.
Because you come out, you were just a blip, and then no one remembers you the next day. Yeah, it's Spirit Untamed, buddy. But here, yes, I remember the flaws, but I remember the pros. I remember the bad jokes. I remember the good jokes. I remember the visual gags. I don't think I'll ever get over the fact that speed racing is done with horses, or just a ton of the visual gags. Like, there are so many great little jokes. Like, I love when George is looking through the photos, it says character backstory on one side of the box.
I don't think the visual humor in this gets enough credit, because like so much of what this movie is throwing at you is dialogue heavy, that I bet the animators had so much fun just kind of sneaking in some stuff in the background, things that like you probably wouldn't notice until like the fourth or fifth viewing.
And then they do stuff like when Abe Lincoln is calling out the whole, like, you're telling me to pay for this shirt and it's expensive, and instead of actually referencing Lincoln's actual quotes, he's like, something taxation. Yeah, sir, I just work here. Representation. Yeah. Okay.
By the way, did you like actually see the price of the shirt? It was like $5 and taxes $30.
Yeah, no, that was great. And, like, there is so much to like about this movie, and why you can see people who don't like it and who find it very fun and appealing. Yeah, I've seen the whole spectrum of responses. And I loved like the little joke at the very beginning that the whole beginning of the Declaration of Independence was decided on beer pong. And don't worry, Hancock, you can use we rich white people for your Christmas cards. But it's like, oof. And yeah, I warts and all, I liked it. I won't call it a guilty pleasure because I kind of agree with someone on Twitter that's saying like, if you like it, you like it. You don't have to try to justify it. I mean, I could go on about like a lot of little details about this film, but I mean, overall, I enjoyed it, warts and all. But I'm not shocked if someone does not like it.
I think talking about this movie kind of makes me realize I liked it a little bit more than my quick thoughts kind of represented. But I also think that perhaps had I seen this movie when I was younger, like around the time that Idiocracy was released, I would have warmed up to it about to that level. And if you know me, you know how much I love Idiocracy.
Right. It's an interesting movie, and being interesting whether you fully succeed in your plot or not, well, that's better than not being interesting. So,
Which kind of is the perfect transition to our next movie, and one that I can still smell the torches from a mile away. Yeah, we're going to talk about The Boss Baby Family Business, the sequel to 2017's The Boss Baby. Again, I can still smell those torches and pitchforks. Loosely adapted from a children's book of the same name by Marla Fraze. And like the first film, this was directed by Tom McGrath, best known for the Madagascar trilogy, and stars Alec Baldwin, James Marsden, replacing Tobey Maguire, and Amy Sedaris. So in this movie, the Templeton brothers, Tim and his boss baby little brother, Ted, have become adults and drifted away from each other. But a new boss baby with a cutting-edge approach and a can-do attitude is about to bring them together again and inspire a new family business. Let me start because I promised my Facebook audience that I would explain why I love both these movies so much. And honestly, it's because I see a lot of McGrath's influences from the animation. He definitely takes a very Looney Tunes approach to the way he stages like these everything from dream sequences to the backgrounds to just sort of like his timing, his like the speed of the animation. It's just also wonderful. Some of the best like cartoony CGI that I've seen since the first Hotel Transylvania.
yeah, I was always a little mixed about the original film. Not because like I just hated it. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon for the first film. It was like an interesting movie just because it was like right after Kung Fu Panda 3. And it came out during not a great year for animation. It was 2017, and that year we got a bunch of mixed results and not a whole lot of good unless you count the always amazing indie scene and foreign animation scene. But this was also like the same year we got Cars 3, Lego Batman,
Lego Ninjago.
yeah, Lego Ninjago, everyone's favorite overwrought punching bag, the Emoji Movie. But then it was also like the year we got Coco, Loving Vincent, Mary and the Witch's Flower, Breadwinner, In This Corner of the World, The Girl Without Hands, Bird Boy, Window Horses, A Silent Voice. We finally got Studio Ghibli's Ocean Waves, and Despicable Me 3, the much better than you would think it is Ferdinand. But then we also had like super mediocre The Guardian Brothers and Leap and Spark. Spark, A Space Tale. Good lord, I forgot about that movie. And I wonder if its legacy would have been different if The Boss Baby was not nominated for an Oscar.
Honestly, that's a good question.
Like, would people be as vitriolic towards this first film if the Academy instead nominated like A Silent Voice or Mary and the Witch's Flower or In This Corner of the World instead of this movie? Like, would people be like, oh, it was just that one comedy DreamWorks made? Like how a lot of DreamWorks animated comedies are kind of judged and made from and such. They're like, oh, okay, yeah, they made that. All right. And then they move on to the next thing to see what works.
I think some of that vitriol I definitely think some of that vitriol does come from it becoming the Oscar villain. And I'm trying to think, what else was nominated that year?
The Breadwinner, Loving Vincent, and Ferdinand.
Okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that most of its vitriol does just come from it being the Oscar villain. A, it didn't even win, so who cares? And B, fine, I'm the only person who loves this movie to death, but even if it did win, so what? We all kind of generally agree that the Oscars are not the end-all be-all when it comes to declaring what is or isn't a quality animated film.
Right. And it was still a pretty good overall lineup, all things considered. Like The Breadwinner, which was my personal favorite, Coco, Loving Vincent, and Ferdinand. Like, they could have gone worse. They could have said, let's put Spark or the Emoji Movie. I mean, I still think it's pretty okay. Smurfs: The Lost Village. 2017 had plenty of other worse candidates that they could have chosen.
Exactly. But let's keep the focus more on the sequel because,
Yes.
First of all, let's take a minute to talk about DreamWorks sequels in general. Have you noticed a particular philosophy that they have when it comes to sequels? Whether or not the movies are good, something that I can commend them for is they're never just a rehash of the original.
Well, outside of like what I felt like were the third and fourth Shrek films were trying to recapture that magic, but
Well, yeah, those two are exceptions,
but no, but like to observe the sequels made by DreamWorks, yeah, they're definitely like, let's do something absurd, let's do something interesting, and let's slide in some ambitious themes and commentary within the story. And we definitely saw a lot of that last year with Trolls World Tour and Crew to New Age.
both of which were huge surprises for me, at least.
I think most people overall enjoyed Trolls World Tour more than they were thinking. Not like it was like their favorite movie or anything, but they were like, man, why are they making a sequel to this with the exception of the obvious, money?
Mm-hmm.
And then they watch it and it's like, man, that was pretty good. And then the Crew to New Age had pretty much everything going against it because it was on and off production multiple times.
And halfway through, they lost the original directors.
Like, it had all like the bad luck. And then it turns into a pretty great sequel, like one that I would argue is better than the first film by miles. Because they just went out there, they had fun with it. And you can definitely pick that up with Family Business. While I don't know if I would say it's like one of my favorite sequels from DreamWorks, I still overall enjoyed it. It's not sitting in my top 10, but it's in my top 20 for right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
Mostly just because like I've watched this film twice and I wanted to give it a second chance because when I was watching it the first time, I was exhausted from a really tough day of work, and I might have found its energy to be like the exact opposite of what I needed. It's that kind of thing. But what did you overall think about the sequel before we dive into what we liked and didn't like?
Overall, I really loved it. I don't know whether I like it more or less than the original, but there are certain elements are in this movie that I like over the original. Like, for example, I think James Marsden really works as the new voice for Tim.
I'm still wondering what happened with Tobey Maguire.
That's a good question.
Like, was there a reason why he didn't come back? Was he just too busy? Did he not want to? Was DreamWorks not paying enough? I mean, he's basically, the weird thing about this movie is that even though they convert Tim and Theodore to their kid sizes again, Tim keeps the same adult voice, which was an interesting design choice.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we'll talk about maybe this is a flaw or something. So I wonder why Toby didn't come back. And who knows, maybe he said it and we're just like missing it or something. Like we're looking the other way at like a bird or something. While he's over here explaining why he's not back. I overall enjoyed this movie.
The original voice of Timmy from the first movie is Miles Bakshi. I'm gonna hazard a guess that the reason he didn't come back for the sequel was because he was going through puberty. They must have just thought it was easier to just keep James Marsden as the voice for the whole time.
I think that might have been it. By the way, Miles Christopher Bakshi is related to the famous adult animator Ralph Bakshi. Yeah, it's really surreal to see that. So overall, I enjoyed this movie. Like, I still had a lot of fun with it. I think it had some very charming moments, and I am so happy that DreamWorks is just going all in with their animation for like comedy and such. It's a little much, which we'll get into, but in general, while it might not be a great year for DreamWorks, at least film-wise, and we'll have to see how that Troll Hunters film on Netflix turns out. I could think of I would rather watch Boss Baby Family Business over a lot of the other films I've seen this year.
Having not seen the ones that you're referring to, even I would still agree.
Let's start with the positive. One, this animation. Like, the human designs, I can understand liking or hating them, but I love the expression work on the characters. They are so interesting to watch. And I mean that in a good way, not just like, oh wow, this doesn't translate it all into CGI. Their cartoony nature leads to a lot of great big expressions. And that carries over from the first film. Like when you see Jimbo as an adult, he's still wildly like, his mouth is big, he's loud. And then you see like the eccentric Dr. Armstrong voiced by Jeff Goldblum. And just how vibrant his facial animation is. Or like when you see Tim's brother, aka, you know, Theodore, Boss Baby, like when he comes back after hearing that his supposed niece fell off a horse. And then you get the horse itself. Like, that is an expressive little pony.
Between Precious and I think it was Maxwell from Tangled, those two are kind of competing for best animated horse.
This movie is so expressive. It's so cartoony, and I love that they dive into it. They should. There's like, I don't know. There's this notion that it's a cartoony movie. Being cartoony is bad for some reason. Like, it's a cartoon, so it can't be cartoony. I don't know. I never got that. I mean, I can understand, but I never fully got that complaint. Like, oh, how dare a cartoony movie be cartoony?
If this is not your cup of tea, it's not your cup of tea. But like, don't get mad at the movie for doing what it set out to do.
It's just amusing to me that there was that movement for a while until I think a few people who started that movement were like, okay, sorry, we were in the wrong. I do like Amy Sedaris as Tina Templeton. She was very funny, very enjoyable addition to the cast, and how like more on board with everything, like in control, than the other two were. But if I had to say there was a scene stealer, and there are like a few scene stealers, I would have to say it's Dr. Armstrong.
Yes.
I think it's his combination of Jeff Goldblum's very eccentric voice and Armstrong's just great animation.
The body language of Armstrong when he's in his... We are talking spoilers, right? Because...
Yeah, we kind of have to, because I was not expecting the twist with Armstrong.
Yeah. The twist is, all right, let's just rip off the Band-Aid. Dr. Armstrong is a baby.
And we're not just always being a man-child. He's a literal baby who's disguised as an adult who wants to start a baby revolution by mind controlling the adult so the babies take over the world. And at first, like, when you don't know about that, you're like, what the heck is this movie doing with an adult that wants to start a baby revolution with baby rebels? And then the twist happens, and it's like,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes a lot more sense when you finally see it unfold. I just love this kind of animation with these characters. Like, it's not Sony levels of squash and stretch, but they really expand on that with all the humans in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Like, especially like when Tim and his brother drink the baby formula to turn small, and they just really squash and stretch the heck out of their body move proportions. I'm not going to say it's realistic, but this is probably what it would look like.
Probably.
And even though I'm like not a huge fan of some of the other baby characters that we meet, like Nathan Pickles and Megan Glick, I loved the expressions on them. I mean, again, this is like one of those movies you could watch for animation classes because you can easily tell what kind of characters they are just by their movements. If you just muted it, like the no girl, like the baby who was like, no, you can extremely tell what kind of character she is just by her rocking back and forward. Her arms are constantly crossed. The extremely sour look on her face. It's a fun movie to watch for animation alone because I'm sure someone in 1995 is like, why can't we do this?
I would love to be some sort of time traveler and show this movie to, the people at Pixar and have their jaws just fall to the floor with everything that they accomplish. Like I said before, the backgrounds where during the Annecy preview for this movie, they cited people like Maurice Noble who did background work for all of Chuck Jones's cartoons at Warner Brothers. All that is just really well done. But we're spending all this time talking about the animation that admittedly does kind of overshadow the emotional aspect of the film. And yeah, that is honestly, for me at least, just as strong. Seeing Tim and his brother reconnecting, which somehow turns out to be the true mission and not stopping an evil baby scientist from controlling the world through mobile apps.
I thought that was a little bit of a cop out of like, okay, really? That's what the whole plot was about? It was more important that these two get together than this guy trying to take over the world. All right. No, it has some good emotional themes. Like, just because you're growing up doesn't mean you have to lose your inner child. I mean, I feel like that's how I kind of thought about life in a lot of ways. Like, there was a point where, like, everyone does this. Even the daughter goes through this where she's like, well, I can't act like a kid anymore. I got to be a grown up. I got to be mature and adult. And it's like, no. I mean, you will have to take things more seriously and take on more responsibilities, but don't lose like the inner fun, your inner kid.
Yeah, it's a lesson that we're all still learning.
And I do admire the theme of just like that feeling of just like drifting apart as a family. And I mean, I respect that they wanted to do something like that. I don't think it fully works. I don't think the emotional core is as strong as the first movie, but I still like that there was an idea to go with. But I do want to talk about some of the criticisms I have. As much as I love the cartoony animation, as much as I love how comedic focused it all is, it's too much at points. Even like after not watching this at midnight on Peacock, I was very much drained after that whole sequence in the town, like when they're trying to get to the school. Like, I loved it, but I felt exhausted in the wrong way, where I was like, woo, yeah, that was great. It was like, oh, whoa, okay. And then there were just like little moments within the school where there's just so much stimulation. It's overbearing at times. And that's especially true for me, at least, when Boss Baby is inside the daycare center part and he's trapped in that small room with all the other babies.
He's trapped with like the yellow group.
Yeah, he's trapped in the yellow group, and there's that creepy Pennywise baby, which is like, on one hand, it's like, I don't get why this is here, but on the other hand, it leads to some of the great jokes that are in the later part of the film.
That and the kid who's obsessed with glue. I like glue.
And I love those little mafia babies, like the ones that have the Pez dispenser and such.
Yeah.
But again, it's like, I mean, and some of the visual stimulation is great. Like when Tim is singing with his daughter, that whole scene was at the Annecy preview, and it was great.
I think that is, if I had to pick a single favorite scene, that one might be it. Yeah, that's showing a little bit of my bias, but still.
I am kind of interested to see how that kind of unfolded with the whole Spirit Stallion and Cimarron clip playing. It's like, oh, kind of want to watch that movie now. But I don't think all the characters are that great, like new and returning. Carol Templeton, Tim's wife, she's not interesting. I like some of her lines, like when Tim, when he's a kid, is being like, whoa, I didn't know you had a hot older sister that knew how to drive. And Tabitha's just like, that's just my mom. And Carol is just like, don't ruin the mood, sweetie. and such, but she's not really interesting. And I like Ava Longoria, but
Yeah, I'll agree with that. Like, if they were going to give her that line of like, "Shh, don't ruin the moment," that was too much personality in that one line that she didn't really have in the rest of the film.
and I love that they combined the imagination parts again. I wish they did a little more. And then I don't know, did they make sense by the point when you got introduced to the baby ninjas? I don't know. It's like I think part of the fun was how it was still sort of grounded within the human world and not in Tim's imagination, but then it kind of feels like it bleeds into one another.
I enjoyed from an animation perspective the baby ninjas and some of the wackier elements, but it's kind of hard. I will concede that the lines between fantasy and reality are a lot more blurred in this movie, but at the same time, like the villain in the first movie was trying to create the ultimate puppy. So I guess you could say neither film had like complete separations between fantasy and reality.
And it's like I like some of the stuff, but I think they could have balanced it out better. And then, did they really need to bring back Tim's parents? The screwdriver joke was funny, but then it's like, but the screwdriver joke was already funny when I saw it in Mitchell's versus the Machines.
Yeah, nobody's gonna top that.
And I mean, I love Lisa Kudrow and I like Jimmy Kimmel, and I like the little details that they added onto the characters to make them look older. But then it's like the dad is just obsessed with selfies and the mom gets nothing. It's a touch more uneven than I think like The Croods: A New Age, which I thought was just a sequel that flowed very well with its tone and balancing of comedy and such.
I think The Croods: A New Age is a better sequel to its original, but I think this movie is only as good as the original. It's not better as a whole. There are just little touches that I think put this above. Having thought about it a little bit more, still love the movie as much as I do. I can see like the more genuine criticisms.
No, and again, I like little details. I like that they bring back the gang from the first film as adults, like with Jimbo being the mayor and then Stacy being his wife, and aka the one with the brains in the operation. And I like seeing the triplets as cops. I was a little bummed that they didn't show up more because I kind of wanted to see what they were like as adults. But I did like the triplets being like busted, busted, busted. I mean, I don't know. It's such a mixed experience, even though I still overall enjoyed the movie. And I'd still recommend it if it's. I mean, it should be playing in theaters for a little bit longer. So
It'll be in theaters for a while, and either if you don't feel comfortable going to the movies or you just where you live there's just no theaters open, you can watch this on Peacock for free.
that's what I did. Not because there are no theaters open. I live in Austin. We have plenty of theaters. It was more just I didn't have the time to go to a theater. And because I was hoping my Alamo Draft House would have it near me, but it was one I'd have to take a bus and travel a little across town. And I'm just going to take the easier option. But I'm sure a lot of this looked amazing on the big screen.
I saw this in the Dolby theater, so certain scenes like the chase sequence or Tim singing with his daughter, all those moments popped a little bit more on the bigger screen.
Yeah, I'm sure that flaming Christmas tree was just like, whoa, like on the big screen.
Oh yeah.
Even though it still translates pretty well on, like, I still have a pretty big size TV, so I'm sure it still looked. Yeah, that's all I have to say about the Boss Baby family business.
So yeah, we move on then to the first half of Miyazaki's How It Started, How's It Going. We start with 1984's Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. Adapted from his own manga series, the story is set after a global war as a seaside kingdom known as the Valley of the Wind remains the last strongholds on Earth, untouched by a poisonous jungle and the powerful insects that guard it. Led by the courageous Princess Nausicaa, the people of the valley engage in an epic struggle to restore the bond between humanity and Earth. And this is one of those movies where literally every couple minutes I was watching this, I just kind of exclaimed, this guy is so damn good at this stuff.
Yeah, this is one of those directors and just filmmakers in general who's going to make a strong first impression, because even like technically this wasn't his first directorial gig. He did a few things beforehand, and then he did the Castle of Cagliostro, which is a Lupin the Third film. But Nausicaa was like his first real big, like, I'm going to kick down the doors of the animation industry.
This is the first movie, I'd say the first project that he worked on that is like entirely his. Takahata was his producer, and he got the amazing Joe Hisaishi to compose. While this was proto Ghibli, it's like all of the ingredients are like in this pot.
Yeah, this was like, here's everything that originated. Strong female characters, anti-war and environmental messages, grand landscapes and skyscapes. Like even before like Makoto Shinkai took like the king of the skyscape crown. It's interesting to talk about this movie because it has such an interesting history, and mostly because it also has a very infamous history as an animated film, because this was brought over back in 1985. But it was heavily edited, and it was called Warriors of the Wind. What happened was that Miyazaki saw what happened to it, and he's just like, what the F, bro? Why did you do this?
We almost would never have gotten a single Miyazaki film in the West after this because of that, like, well, let's call it what it is, a hack dub.
Yeah, and basically what happened was there had to be a lot of convincing to get like Princess Mononoke over. He was very iron-fisted with like, okay, I'll give you one more chance. And then the infamous line comes up, no cuts. And when Miramax was unfortunately owned by one of Hollywood's biggest scumbags, Harvey Weinstein wanted to, well, do what Harvey Weinstein does to anything animated he touches. Edit the heck out of it. Everyone loves this story because it's a great story. Miyazaki sent him a katana and a note that said, no cuts.
I love that.
Yeah, it's just like, do not do that. And he had to fight hard to make sure his films weren't edited. They had to be shown as presented. And I'm sure like after the success of Princess Mononoke, that's when we started getting the others over here. And it's just interesting to know that we got Valley of the Wind early on in the early days of US getting anime. But then we almost couldn't have. Like, in history would have been so interesting to see what happens if we never got these movies. What would happen to animation as a whole? Like, would Ghibli films stay just like, oh, this is a thing that everyone in the US animation scene loves and talks about?
Yeah, no, I don't think Miyazaki would be like as he wouldn't be like the household name that he is today if not for the success of Princess Mononoke.
Yes, and this is really like, I don't want this to sound bad. It's very basic Miyazaki. Not that like that's a bad thing, and I don't mean it as a bad thing. It's very much just like distilled Miyazaki of what he likes, because you have the strong-willed Nausicaa who wants to find a way to not be violent but is constantly pushed into violent situations, and then you have her wanting to like have a peaceful relationship dynamic with the bugs, because that's like, in this world, that's all that's left are giant bugs with very few other kinds of animals and humans. And then her just trying to find a way for all the people to get together and not fight, because we should all be in this together to save the environment and what have you.
Thematically, this is pretty much like the proof of concept of what a typical Miyazaki movie is, like in one soup.
Like, Nausicaa technically works better for me, at least, as a mood piece, because there's a lot of times where it's just flying around in the sky, checking out the environment. It's a very quiet movie. Like, it's not a silent film. I'm not saying that's what it is. It's just, you know how we talked about last time where we were just like, let the characters breathe. Let them
Hmm.
live in the world. This is exactly the originator of that tone, of that style. I love it. It's such an atmospheric experience of a film because you can't do this with a lot of anime where you mute it, and traditional anime is very stilted and limited. You really couldn't tell what's going on with like most anime shows made. But with Nausicaa, you could quite literally mute this and you would understand it if you just let the music be in the background.
Hmm.
And that's again to strong character design and character animation. You get who these characters are. And it also, I mean, granted, it helps that for an English dub cast, they have quite an impressive lineup of actors. You have Nausicaa, who's voiced by Alison Lohman. You have Yupa, voiced by the ever great Sir Patrick Stewart. Perfect casting. Patrick Stewart has that voice that reminds me of like a lot of older animated films from like the 70s and 80s. You know what I mean? Like what I talked about
Yeah.
with Robin Hood and such. Disney's Robin Hood, to be clear. Like his voice wouldn't be so out of touch during that time period. And then you got Kushana, who's voiced by Uma Thurman, Kurotoa, who's voiced by Chris Sarandon, Mito, voiced by Edward James Olmos. The little fox squirrel thing, voiced by Frank Welker. Ashbel, voiced by the ugh, Shia LaBeouf. The Pegite Mayor, voiced by Mark Hamill. Obaba, voiced by Tress McNeil. Gull, voiced by Frank Welker again. And you got Lestelle's mother, who's voiced by Jodie Benson. And then King Jill is voiced by Mark Silverman. And then Princess Lestelle, voiced by Emily Bauer. Like, this is a great cast. And I'm sure it's just like, well, I haven't heard of half of these people. Who's Chris Sarandon? Jack Skellington
Yep.
from Nightmare for Christmas. And it's like, wait a minute, is that true? And then I listen to his voice closely and it's like, oh, that is him. You can hear it when he's really dry and sarcastic.
Oh,
It's kind
yep.
of like when Jack Skellington's sarcastic. I love like the designs. I love Kushana, who you find out doesn't really have her whole body there. So you're wondering like what else is she hiding? And she alludes to the fact that due to her violent actions against the bugs, she suffered consequences. And it's not a really action focused film.
There is action. It's very much, it's unglamorous because again, this is a anti-war movie, but also it's just very much not the focus. The focus is more on, the environmentalism of Nausicaa, like protecting her people, but doing so in a way that is more about preserving her village, living in harmony with the own.
Nausicaa, while not my favorite Ghibli protagonist, she's also like, I think she's a little too ideal. Like, she doesn't really have a lot of flaws. I think she has enough flaws to make her interesting, but I wouldn't say she's more interesting than some of the other characters that Miyazaki has created. But she fits within this story because she's a play on the Chosen One narrative.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what did you think about Nausicaa as a character?
She definitely fits the narrative. And I think something that's kind of interesting is this movie came out in 1984, and it might be one of the earliest examples of a kind of gender swap of a folk legend. You know how in the beginning they described like the man in the blue who comes to save the world.
Right.
And at the end of the film, it's Nausicaa in her blue dress.
Yeah.
I thought that was a nice subversion of expectations.
Yeah. And by the way, Tony J was narrator at the beginning.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I miss voices like Tony J. It's just you never quite get that kind of actor or voice anymore. I thought like this is definitely one of the earlier Ghibli dubs with celebrities in it, and I thought they did a good job. And I feel like I'm on my back feet because of Shia LaBeouf, because of the recent allegations and just news stories that popped up about him.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And when talking about these Ghibli movies, you kind of have to, when talking about the English cast, you kind of have to consider where we were in pop culture, especially like around 2005, like that era of Disney. This was when Shia LaBeouf was, still considered one of their biggest stars.
Yeah, this was before the Transformer movies, kind of.
Yep.
And it's interesting to hear like Mark Hamill, who would pop back in Castle in the Sky as the villain. I like these actors. I like Frank Welker, man. Like, give me everything with Frank Welker. I'll watch it. And Tress MacNeille.
I think McNeil is probably in the most Ghibli films.
That sounds about right.
Because I see her name pop up in like almost everything, at least like until 2011.
Yeah. And like she's in My Neighbor the Yamadas, and she's in Castle in the Sky.
She is in Only Yesterday. It's a smaller role, but she is in that one.
Nice. Now, I will say, like, I do think it's a well-paced movie, but I understand that some people are like, it's a little slow because a lot of the film is traveling. Like, I can understand if someone wanted maybe a little more action or just something else. But here's a fun little fact. Of course, most people will know this. I don't know if you know this, but Hideki Anno worked on this movie.
There's something to say about the next film, too.
Yeah, and he was one of the animators for it before he would go on and direct Evangelion and become one of the few Japanese animators that Miyazaki's just like, you know what, man? You're cool. I like you. I mean, overall, like for our first major non-franchise-based film project, Nausicaa's a knockout.
I anticipate this movie kind of dropping on my list just because I'll be seeing more from both Miyazaki and Takahata, but where it is right now, it's damn good. It's not better than Castle in the Sky, or well, I'll talk about it once we get to The Wind Rises. But for Miyazaki's first like this is mine kind of project, this is a really good one.
Yeah, it's a very good movie. I highly recommend watching it. If you're already familiar with him but you haven't seen it yet, watch it. It's during that time where animated films could very much just take their time a little, envelop you into their worlds. Like, I still love the beginning with Nausicaa on her glider, which I want those gliders made. We don't need hover boots or hoverboards. I want that glider.
That glider looks like so much fun.
Yeah, no, I really love where she's like the forest area in the beginning. It's just so cool, and everyone gets so entranced when they watch that sequence that I've shown them to.
Now watch this movie and then watch Star Wars The Force Awakens, and you'll notice more comparisons between Nausicaa and Rey.
That's interesting. That's very true. But let's move on to what was going to be Miyazaki's last movie. Like, no, I know I said it last time. This is going to be my last movie. I mean, of course, before the one he's making right now, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. But yeah, this is 2013's The Wind Rises. A lifelong love of flight inspires Japanese aviation engineer Jiro Horikoshi, whose storied career includes the creation of the A6M World War II fighter plane. So as far as I know, this is like the only movie that Miyazaki's directed that's like based on a real person. It's not quite a biopic. It's more like just an animated dramatization of the life of the creator of the A6M.
Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting take. It's probably his least fantastical story that he's made, even though it still has a lot of those elements of his like fantasy and whimsy and wonder, and just like how he would craft the like certain elements. It's kind of like his awards season drama. Let's just say that.
Yeah. When in my editorial and the show notes for last week's episode, I stressed the point that animation has no limits. And this movie is kind of the perfect example of this, because this is a movie that uses the medium, particularly when Jiro is dreaming and, you know, his mind drifts to wherever he wants to go. But like sequences like that, Miyazaki showing off how much he loves aviation, it just makes this like a very fulfilling watch.
It's interesting how he approaches this real life individual, because this movie got a lot of heat when it was originally released, because they were thinking like, wow, he's justifying and softening up the guy who made the notorious kamikaze planes. And that's not really the case. Because he's not saying like, oh, this is my greatest work. The perspective he takes this from, like with Jiro, is a man who loved airplanes. Like, he loved just looking at them in the sky, looking at them in books, looking at art, looking at like every little detail. It's about a man and his passion.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie is also very smart to frame like his final creation, the one that gets him his notoriety, is not a great thing. He's not happy that his art was used in such a way. The film is very much like happy ending. It's definitely more of a bitter ending to it all. In my little Facebook review of it, I said there's a bitter somber to it. It's beautiful. It's just a great overall experience, but it's bittersweet.
Oh,
It's a very mature story for Ghibli and Miyazaki because they do that whole thing where it's like, I just want to make a movie that anyone can enjoy. This is the one that feels the most outwardly adult next to Only Yesterday.
yeah. It's not like kids can't enjoy it. This is definitely, it's even kind of emphasized in the runtime too. Like this is it's a drama that happens to be animated. It's not an animated movie that happens to be a drama.
But it still has like its creative moments, like when obviously the war is going on and the earth shakes and such. It feels like there's a monster shaking the earth below the train.
Yep.
And it's still very creative. It takes advantage of its animation. And it has some of that Miyazaki whimsy, like how Jiro gets inspired by looking at the rib of a mackerel that he's eating to be like, oh man, if we can shape the wings to with this kind of element, we would cut down on wind resistance. And there's definitely like a lot more political intrigue in this. It's kind of like part thriller, as you know, it's obvious that Japan's trying to work on planes to send the war against the US and British and what have you. And the unrest and uneven nature of them joining with Germany on this match, because these people just want to live. They just want to work, and war is bad, y'all. I don't know who needs to keep hearing that, but war is bad.
Gee, I wonder how Miyazaki feels about war.
Yeah, no, it's a mystery. Now, what did you think about the cast? Like what did you think about the characters themselves overall? Because these are mostly adult characters. Like, there's no real kid characters outside of Jiro's sister, like Kayo, who's voiced by Mae Whitman. It's like, what did you think of them having more adult characters?
I think it's appropriate for the story that they were telling. You know, if you're focusing more on Jiro as an adult, working as an engineer, then like you're going to surround him with more adults than say, you know,
like kids. Like, it's not like My Neighbor Totoro or Kiki's Delivery Service where it's like tween to like teenage to older kids and such. And
I could see a version of the story where it's like this is like the origin of how he got his job as an engineer, but that wouldn't really make for an interesting narrative, because the interesting part of his life was when he actually got to realize his his dream.
Like, the film is set up like this. Basically, it starts with him as a kid reading magazines and such, and then having dreams with him meeting Giovanni Battista Caproni, who's voiced by Stanley Tucci in this film. And Giovanni is like a mentor, like in his dreamlike state of mind, because he feels like, well, I can't fly because I have imperfect vision. And then of course Giovanni's just like, listen here, do you know how many planes that I have flown? None, not a single one. I may not know how to fly an airplane, but I designed them. And it inspires him to get into that business. And, you know, Miyazaki's dad did work on planes and making them and such. You could see that in how Jiro is, like his realization of what he wants to do. And then it goes into when he starts out young and starts out as a young adult, and then going into his adulthood and meeting Nahoko Satomi, who's voiced by Emily Blunt. Though, if we have to go by it, Madeline Rose Yen when Nahoko is younger. And then dealing with like his cohort, Kiro Honjo, voiced by John Krasinski, dealing with his bosses like Kurokawa, voiced by Martin Short.
That was just hilarious.
He's great. I love his character animation, especially like when he's like walking with Drive and his hair flaps up like a bird. Then you have like Hattori, who's voiced by Mandy Patinkin, which is kind of full circle because Mandy Patinkin was in Castle in the Sky.
Oh yeah,
he was one of the henchmen for the pirates. And then you have Satomi, Nahoko's father, voiced by William H. Macy. And then you have Kastrop, who's voiced by Werner Herzog.
Of all people.
Of all people. And I like him. I know some people were kind of like, what the heck is he doing here? But I don't care. I like him. And then you have like Mrs. Kurokawa, Kurokawa's wife, of course, voiced by Jennifer Grey. Then you have, again, like Mae Whitman, Ava Bell. And apparently Elijah Woods pops up, small role, but I forgot where he was and I couldn't find him.
I couldn't pick him out either.
Because it's a more adult-centered story, it is mostly talking and them crafting the plane. And again, this is what an adult animated film looks like if you don't want America the Motion Picture. And yeah, I don't know. It's that same mindset I had when we talked about Only yesterday, where it's just like, okay, so you don't want the hyperviolence and the shock value. Well, this is what the mature animated film looks like. And everybody's like, I don't want that. And it's like, then what do you want? I'm sitting here. I'm tired. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. What do you want?
Yeah, no, to that point, in live action, you know, people like there is an equal audience for, you know, action movies, thrillers, what have you, but you can also just watch like a hangout movie about a couple of friends drinking beer on the weekend.
Yeah.
So why can't we do the same thing with animation?
Again, this happens where they do try to make it and then people don't tune into it because it's not The Simpsons or it's not South Park or Family Guy. I don't know. It's that thing of like, I wish they would, like, we do get those things and then studios really don't commit to it unless it's like, oh wow, this was a hit, so yeah, let's do more. They need to just let adult stories like this get made because it's a very touching story watching Jiro work on the plane and then get married to Nahoko, and just their friendship and marriage is very endearing, even if I think Nahoko is not the most interesting female character from a Miyazaki film. Like, I think she's great. I don't know if I needed Emily Blunt to play her.
I liked her performance. She gave the character a nice warm presence, and every scene that she had with Jiro was very sweet. But you know, outside of her tuberculosis, there's not a whole lot to her character, which is unfortunate.
It's very unfortunate because she comes into the story proper near, like, in the midway point of the second act, or I guess third act, depending on how you want to break this film up, either into 3 acts or 5. And then she just is in the background. And it's about, like, Jiro kind of struggling to make this plane, but also wanting time with Nahoko. And then, well, spoilers, Nahoko dies. They don't say it directly, but
you know.
And it's incredibly touching. One of the few Ghibli scenes that will make me cry when she departs the film, and then at the very end when she tells him to keep living. It's like, this is what it looks like to grab a very intimate and powerful emotional response from moviegoers. I love the ending to this film.
Yeah, the ending is it's not quite the typical Miyazaki ending. Miyazaki and Don Bluth are 2 directors that are kind of obsessed with, even in their most darkest stories, the ending is always a happy one. But this is a different kind of hat. It's a bittersweet note, but there's still some optimism to it.
Yeah, it's a very different take from a lot of Miyazaki's films, and it's like the exact polar opposite of like what he started out with, and then like he still kept the whimsy throughout most of his career, but this one was just like, this is the last of the whimsy I'm going to have movie mate for my stories, if that makes sense. Like you start with like this fantastical fantasy worlds with Castle in the Sky and Nausicaä, then you get into more quote unquote real fantasy with Kiki's Delivery Service and Porco Rosso. Then you dive back into a more serious tone fantasy with Princess Mononoke. Then you get the more family friendly, but still like with an edge fantasy with Spirited Away. And then you get the one that's like, well, we'll have to talk about what you think about Howl's Moving Castle when we get to that point. And then he does like more family friendly fantasy with Ponyo. And then you get this movie, and you get why Miyazaki made it, because it kind of encapsulates his journey as an animation director and just him as a person.
Yeah, like it's gonna be interesting what Miyazaki does with his final film, How Do You Live?
Yeah, and if you want to know a little more about the behind the scenes stuff with The Wind Rises, there's a great documentary called The Kingdom of Dreams and Madness, which is about Studio Ghibli, but it's mostly about when he's making The Wind Rises and a little bit of like Isao Takahata's last film, The Tale of Princess Kaguya. It made me like love animation production a little more, and just to see Miyazaki like when he's just kind of like working on stuff, because he's very much an old man. And like even like back then, like back when he was making stuff like Kiki's Delivery Service, I love this part where he's looking at like this cat and he's like, look how relaxed this cat is. It's pathetic. You have nothing to worry about. And the cat just kind of looks at him like, what? It's very interesting. And I also love when he's working on it, the documentary of when he's working on his short called The Never Ending Man. He does these little things that is adorable. Like when he sees these school kids walk by, he'll put these little paper mache goats on his roof. And even though, like, yes, we've criticized Miyazaki for just not doing a great job of keeping the studio in a healthy work environment, like in other elements of that, but I just like, he's human, and I think that's what's the most important thing he brings to his films. There's a human element to it. There's a human beauty to it all.
Yeah.
And there's just going to be something missing in the world once he's gone.
I'm curious how he's going to leave Studio Ghibli once he retires. Are they going to stay alive, or is this studio kind of the animation equivalent of like a mom and pop store?
Well, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, because does Studio Ghibli go and find new talent like from the anime industry? Like, do you get some anime directors who have film ideas to work on movies with them, or do you just like kind of be like what Disney was going to be before they almost shut down their animation property, where it's just going to be more about the Ghibli Museum and such?
Or they'll just continue to do like co-productions like The Red Turtle.
We'll just have to see. But let's just finish up with The Wind Rises. Overall, like, and this was nominated in a pretty strong year for animated films. It was nominated alongside
Frozen.
Frozen, Ernest and Celestine. 2013 is a weird year, man. The Croods, Despicable Me 2, Ernest and Celestine, and The Wind Rises. And Frozen.
Yep. What a year.
I wouldn't call it a great year, but it's an interesting year. That's more than like 2006.
Yeah.
Or some other years, but we'll have to get into that another time. Do you recommend The Wind Rises?
Absolutely. I would almost go as far as to say that The Wind Rises is the best movie from 2013, animated or otherwise.
We'll have to see how you feel when I introduce you to Wolf Children.
Good point.
Because that's my favorite animated film from 2013, and that's Mamoru Hosoda. That was a strong year for foreign animation, man. You had Ernest and Celestine, A Letter to Momo, The Wind Rises, Wolf Children, Approved for Adoption, wrinkles. Oh, it was a beautiful year.
Before I do recommendations, because something else came out that we didn't have time to include in the main show, why don't you go ahead and spin that wheel?
All right, Ghibli wheel, what are you going to give us? Ooh, this is an interesting one.
Oh boy, what do we got?
Well, we're going to talk about one of the black sheep of the Studio Ghibli filmography because it's a very there's a lot of context to this movie that makes it interesting. We're going to talk about The Cat Returns.
Oh, okay.
This is a very interesting one because it's based off of one character that's pretty minor to the overall story of a different Ghibli film, but then they expanded it into its own movie, and it doesn't have Miyazaki or Takahata as a director or producer. It's the idea was inspired by Miyazaki. It was produced by Toshio Suzuki. It was directed by Hiroyuki Morita. But Miyazaki and Takahata just, I'm not going to say they bailed, but they were just like, you all do this. We're busy with what we're working on. Because I'm sure this was around the same time as Howl's Moving Castle. So,
yeah, that kind of adds up.
And this is also when we had a very young Anne Hathaway in one of her first film roles and one of her first voiceover roles. I think it's one of her few that she has. And this is also when we have Carrie Elways, who was a very big name among the Disney English dubs of Ghibli films.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also have like Peter Boyle, Elliot Gould, Judy Greer, which is interesting, Andy Richter, and a young Christian Bell shows up. But of course, if you talk about this movie, you remember the Cat King.
Voiced by Tim Curry.
Yeah.
I am excited about that.
And there are a few interesting elements to the film also that we'll talk about when we get to there. But yeah, next time we'll talk about The Cat Returns.
We'll probably go more into my recommendation at a later date, but just because we didn't have time to talk about this, I at least want to mention that we're recording this on the 4th of July, and on the 4th of July, Netflix released a series of animated music videos executive produced by the Obamas called We the People. Now, I didn't get a chance to see all of them, but the two that I'm going to recommend are Checks and Balances, written by Robert and Kristen Lopez and performed by, Daveed Diggs, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and one other person I can't remember off the top of my head, but there's that and a song called American Citizen, and the video was directed by Jorge Gutierrez.
Yeah, it's about immigration, and it's about like people who started somewhere else before becoming Americans, and it's a great music video. That's the first one I watched, and
it's so good.
It's so good. And Jorge, if we can somehow get you on the show to talk about Maya and the Three and such, we'd love to have you. So as we are recording this, the summer 2021 anime season began, and I had to say goodbye to my social life and work, because there's a lot of anime this season. Not as much as last
20, what is it, 25 or 23?
24.
Oh, okay.
I think 24. And they're slowly kind of rolling out through this month. Not all of them come out like in the same first 2 weeks and such of July. Some of them don't even come out until like August. So we'll have to see how that unfolds. We'll probably do a mid to late August recording for these episodes for the anime rollout, so we'll wait until then. But in terms of the ones that I've seen right now, and there's like a few I could recommend. There's Peach Boy Riverside, which is very interesting in how its story is told. There's Girlfriend, which has an interesting hook for a harem comedy. There's the Case Study of Anitas, which is another Studio Bones anime, which, I'd always recommend them. And then there's Remain, the new anime by Studio Mappa, which, everything with Mappa is pretty good, but then, with what's going on behind the scenes. We'll talk about that another time. There's the new Ghetto Robo anime, which is pulpy fun, if a bit uneven. But the one I want to talk about and recommend the most is the one that surprised me the most so far. The Duke of Death and His Maid, which is about a young man who is cursed at a young age with anything he touches dies. So he lives alone from his family. Like his family was just like, okay, we don't want to deal with this, so we'll put you in a mansion in the forest. And then as he got older, and then like, you know, when he's a young man, he gets this maid who was like a childhood friend of his, who was like the daughter of the head maid from his family's mansion, who is very attracted to him. And it's a hard anime to kind of talk about because it's a little rough around the edges. It might not give out the best first impression. It's using CGI animation and it's a little clunky here and there, but there's this overall mood and how everything is executed that's really charming to me.
The premise sounds very fascinating.
It's the diamond in the rough hidden gem of the season. And I feel like this is just a first episode impression. My opinion might change when we get to the end, when we talk about it in August. But I really enjoyed it. But if you had to pick one, or like pick a few to start watching, pick The Duke of Death and His Maid, Remain, and The Case Study of Vanitas. Those are the three I'd highly recommend starting first. Because I can understand if girlfriend might rub a few people the wrong way. It's very understandable. But yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Next week, we will probably be talking about the new batch of Looney Tunes cartoons. And we will have an episode devoted to some animation news and trailers because we apparently missed a lot of trailers and we got some catching up to do.
And there just wasn't a whole lot of animation news to warrant doing an episode about. And we'll just see what comes up.
All right. But until then, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at CamsEyeView. I run my own website called camseyeview.biz, where I review animated films and TV shows called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out all my quick thought reviews on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. Find me in all the various Facebook groups, just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. You can also review us on Podchaser, listen to all of our previous podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And last but not least, check out everything under the sun at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we. That'll do it for this installment of Renegade Animation. Thank you guys for joining, and we will catch you guys later. Peace out.
Bye.